Buenas and Hafen Day, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening or this late afternoon. The Committee on Education, Self-Determination, and Historic Preservation, Infrastructure, Border Safety, Federal and Foreign Affairs, and Maritime Transportation will now convene for this roundtable hearing on Bill number 254-36 COR with proposed amendments. So in front of you, my team has given out a copy of the proposed amendments that we had from the last public hearing, and we did say that we were going to have another roundtable hearing to ensure that we are going to move forward. We did also give U.S. DOE, Guam Department of Education an opportunity to respond to the needs of the counselors. However, that has yet to be addressed. And so now we are convening this roundtable hearing at this time so that we can move forward with this bill and hopefully get this on the floor. For the record and in accordance with open government law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on Monday, August 1st, 2022, and the second notice on Friday, August 4th, 2022. Today is Monday, August 8th, 2022, and it is currently 17:22 hours of the day. Joining me today for this roundtable hearing is Senators Jim Moylan, Joanne Brown, and Telo Tadiwi. Thank you, Senators, for being present today. Tonight's roundtable hearing is relative to the proposed amendments to Bill number 254-36 COR, as previously discussed in the April 5th, 2022 virtual public hearing. From the previous hearing, it was acknowledged that there was a need for flexibility to be included in the language of the bill. In response to this, the inappropriate duties portion of the bill in Section 5 was omitted. So if you look at the draft copy of the bill that we have in front of us today, you will see that in Section 5, we removed the inappropriate duties. Additionally, other sections of the bill were revisited to make verbiage consistent. A copy of the bill is before you, and it is also in our Google Drive folder link, and copies of the amended bill are distributed here today. With the amended bill, the changes are found on the following pages and line numbers. On page 2, lines 19 and 21, we included the verbiage, "who understand and promote for today's diverse students." Who understand and promote success for today's diverse students. On page 9, line 9, we remove the words "school counseling." And so it is read in that sentence, "the program provides education, prevention, and intervention activities which are integrated into all aspects of students' lives." On page 10, lines 17 to 18 and 20, we included "who understand and promote success for today's diverse students," and we removed the words "school counseling." On page 11, line 25, we corrected it to include the high school counselors' services. Page 12, line 4, we just included the word "the." Page 13, line 9, we removed the inappropriate duties. And on the following page, the inappropriate duties subsection is omitted. I would like to read our sign-in sheet who are in attendance for today. Oh gosh, please forgive me, I don't really understand this. Kenneth Pexel? Paris. See. Way off. David Pexa? Okay. Miss Stella? Calatar? Calata? Ma Blesa Ramos? Congratulations again. Francis Santos. Yes. Miss Leilani P. Guerrero, and we also have Miss Maria Holleran. So thank you very much for joining us today. I believe there are some testimonies that would like to be read for the record during this roundtable hearing. I will offer the floor to Ms. Ma Blesa Ramos. And if you'd like to move forward to have a seat at the table, please. This is a roundtable hearing, so it's a very open dialogue and discussion on the bill, and the opportunity is for everyone to get a chance to speak and perhaps provide some input or perspectives on what they feel, how we can improve on this, or if there are any issues or concerns with the draft that we have completed. Okay? Ms. Ramos?
Yes, good afternoon, senators. Good afternoon,
Try
everyone.
turning on the mic. Maybe it's not on. There we go. Okay, very good.
Again, good afternoon, senators. Good afternoon, everyone who are here today. I will be reading the written testimony for Bill 254-36 of Ms. Ramona Nelson. Half a day, Senator Nelson. Thank you for your continued support in advocating for school counselors. As a member of the Guam Association of School Counselors and the American School Counselor Association, I am in full support of the amended Bill 254-36. Additionally, as a certified school counselor with the Guam Department of Education, I am providing testimony on behalf of the thousands of students whom I have had the honor of serving for the past 8 years. I truly believe Bill 254-36 aims to put the focus back on the much-needed social and emotional needs of our island students and can serve as a safeguard for our most at-risk youth. I would like to state that this bill is important for several additional reasons that I hope to articulate in my testimony below. First and foremost, there is no current job description for school counselors when applying a GDOE. This is very concerning. We heard at the first virtual public hearing for Bill 254-36 on April 5th, 2022, from many individuals, most school administrators, who opposed the bill. The theme that was consistent amongst their testimony was that they simply appeared to not understand the role of a school counselor. It was evident that many were unaware of the ethical and professional standards in which school counselors are held to, as well as the national model or framework put forth by the American School Counselor Association. Therefore, a job description, as outlined in Bill 254-36, could be considered as the best first step in ensuring that both the applicant, school counselor hopeful, and the employer, school administrator /GDOE, are on the same page regarding professional expectations. It is imperative to remember that school counselors hold a master's degree and are often considered the most equipped, trained individuals on a school campus to address the emotional, social, and behavioral needs of the students. Thus, Bill 254-36 would serve as a guide for those who are interested in becoming a school counselor so that there is no ambiguity in what is expected of them upon employment. More importantly, through the passing of this bill, duties, activities performed by school counselors will be consistent across the department, which in my opinion will only make GDOE stronger as an education system. Secondly, Bill 254-36 is consistent with local legislation pertaining to job descriptions relative to helping professions. Specifically, we currently have on island Title 17 Education Division 2 Department of Education Chapter 9A Student Health Services Act, as well as Public Law 31-250, which pertains to an act to add a new Article 23 to Chapter 12, Part 2 of Title 10 Guam Code Annotated, relative to the creation of the Guam Social Work Practice Act. Many who opposed Bill 254-36 were under the impression that it would create a precedence for other positions within the agency or Gov Guam as a whole. However, it is evident that this is not the case. Moreover, As the need for stronger mental health services on our islands increases, this bill will help to prioritize our students so that the focus remains on their well-being. Lastly, I implore you and your colleagues of the 36th Guam Legislature to remind yourselves of why you ran for office. I believe that many, if not all of you, decided to run because you believe that you can enact change. Change for the betterment of our island. Like you, the school counselors and allies who provided previous and current testimony in support of Bill 254-36 are also the same belief that we can be agents of change. I listened to many opposing testimonies, to include the opinions of members of the Board of Education who stated that this bill is not the right approach for advocating for the school counselor profession/duties. Many have shared that the collective bargaining agreement at GDOE is sufficient in providing a process to ensure the school counselors' needs are met. I would like to stress that Bill 254-36 is not intended to meet the needs of school counselor, nor is to circumvent the grievance process. Rather, I would like to stress once more that Bill 254-36 is for the students. School counselors here on Guam love their island and our children too much to merely sit idly by and look at our CBA and the Civil Service Commission to initiate systematic change. Just how you senators were sworn into the office on January 4, 2021, us counselors agreed to abide by our ethical and professional standards when we committed to this field and started our first day at our respective school sites. According to the ASCA national model, school counselors are supposed to be advocates for students so that we can help eliminate barriers impeding the development. As such, this written testimony is just one example of my attempts at advocating for the nearly 400 students I serve each school year. In closing, I am aware that not all of you will pursue a seat on the 37th Guam Legislature. Some of you are seeking a seat in a different government office. Some of you are leaving to pursue other career opportunities or tend to personal matters. As you close out this term, I pray that you leave confident in your decision when voting on this bill. Put pavot, listen to those on the ground working in our school system. Hear the pleas of my fellow school counselors and reflect on the intentions, goals you made for yourself when getting elected. We need to do better by our island's school children, and voting yes on Bill 254-36 is one small act that can make a huge difference. Samanhita Ramona Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. Is there anyone else here that would like to give testimony? Okay. We did receive a letter from the Guam Commission for Educators Certification, and this is some of their concerns, written by the chairperson of the Guam Commission for Educator Certification, Ms. Roberta Abade, and I don't see her here today with us. Are you? So this is the concern that we received August 8, 2022, and this is for today. Thank you for the second opportunity to present testimony on the proposed bill relative to defining the educational and professional requirements for certified school counselors. The first testimony was provided to the Committee on Education on February 15, 2022, and this testimony is to clarify a few issues that still exist with the proposed amended bill. The Guam Commission for Educator Certification supports any bill that would clarify the role of counselors in the school system. We support certification of counselors, and we commend the authors of the proposed bill for their diligence and research in identifying the skills and requirements and for clarifying the job descriptions. However, there are still a few points that need to be clarified. First, the proposed bill as written supports professional school counselor and master school counselor certification. What is not clear is the current option for the non-renewable certificates of temporary and initial counselor certification. In order to enable the school system to provide counselors in the school while they are completing the requirements for a master's degree, GCEC provides a 2-year temporary and a 3-year initial certificate, both non-renewable. Over the last 3 years, 20 certificates have been issued, with 19 of them still valid. In 2021, 13 certificates were issued, and in 2022, there are 5 certificates issued, with all certificates expiring before 2025. Since the proposed bill does not specifically state the temporary and initial certifications, are we to discontinue offering these certificates once the bill becomes law, or are the certificate options able to continue as a means to support the Department of Education's yearly need for counselors? In addition, would it be possible to add a statement indicating that the provision is not to be enacted retroactively and that those individuals currently holding temporary and initial counselor certificates from GCEC, but who do not hold the master's degree requirement as identified in the law, would maintain their certificates under the law with which they entered through the certification process until the expiration of their certificate? Second, the Guam Commission for Educator Certification requires counselors applying for a professional school counselor certificate to have 2 years satisfactory school counseling with evidence from an administrator evaluation and 1 year of satisfactory classroom teaching or 360 hours of K through 12 counseling related to classroom teaching sessions. We also specifically state there should be 200 hours of supervised field-based experiences in K through 12 settings. The proposed bill uses the phrase extensive hours of postgraduate supervision. The extensive hours do not specifically state what is meant by extensive, whereas the GCEC requirements specifically identified 200 hours of supervised experience and 360 hours of K through 12 counseling related classroom teaching sessions. The language of the proposed bill does not support the specific requirements identified in the GCEC law. Will the proposed bill cancel out the previous requirements and remove the 2 years of satisfactory performance, 1 year of classroom teaching with specific hours of related field-based experience to be replaced with an ambiguous extensive instead? And so just to clarify, within that section of the bill, in page 6, we address that issue of concern where, if we look at section 2, let's take it back. If we look at section 2, qualifications for certification for school counselors on page 4, it discusses the school counselor qualifications specifically because of the master's degree requirements. And then we further go on to say in page 6, so that we ensured that the initial and temporary certifications remain intact even when this bill is enacted. We included the provision, notwithstanding any other provision of the law, rule, or regulation, to contrary for the purposes of this chapter of the provisions of Chapter 8 of Title 5, Alpha, Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations, shall only apply for school counselor certification pursuant to subsection 8112, certificates for school counselors.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Do you have a copy of the testimony that you were just reading? Because the testimony you're reading is different from what was provided in the Google Drive.
Okay, we will get that copy to you. And so this is the provision that we ensure that the temporary and initial certifications according to the GAR remains intact. So that would address that concern. And can we please get Mrs. Abade's testimony out to everyone? Just some findings and recommendations from the public hearing that we did have. The findings of school counselors are instructed by Student Procedural Assessment Manual, which is also known as SPAM, to gauge the level of risk of suicide ideations and students based on screeners provided. The 3 levels of risk gauging include low, medium, and high. School counselors are to provide up to 3 counseling sessions for those students assessed to be from low to moderate risk. Students assessed to be of high risk are referred out to a psychologist or psychiatrist outside of GDOE for further assistance. So the challenge that we had in SPAM was that suicide ideation, it's very difficult to gauge whether it's low, moderate, or high. And suicide ideation could have been a behavioral health wellness challenge for the child for several years and was just brought up that day. And so the issue with the SPAM that the counselors are currently working through is that they see that this is a great risk to the students and that if there is a suicide ideation, that they need to be referred immediately. Also because they are not equipped to continue the continuum of care when it comes to suicide ideation, and Ms. Holleran, you spoke on that. School counselors shared their concerns that they are unable to carry out their duties due to tasks detailed to them that are outside of providing academic counseling to students. The extra duties school counselors shared they are tasked with include the district-wide assessment coordinators, and so that also is an issue because I believe that district-wide assessment coordinators that was shared was that they handle at the district level, and the school counselors handle the challenges, the wellness challenges within the schools, and so they should have a supervisor that is trained and certified to help and assist and supervise them at the school level. So district-wide assessments, and please, please chime in if you have anything to add or if it needs correction. School counselors also adhere to the American School Counseling Association, ASCA, and have become an affiliate of the association by establishing the Guam Association of Counselors. The school counselors reference ASCA and its guidelines as their foundation that they model their practices after. And so that is also, I believe, some of the requirements in SPAM conflict with the ASCA models, which is a American School Counseling Association that is practiced nationwide and certifies counselors nationwide. Okay, and in a testimony provided by Ms. Annie Palomares, she shared that school counselors are not budgeted with funds for trainings, unlike that of school teachers. So that's one of the challenges we need to face during the budget session to ensure that the school counselors also are given that opportunity for training and that you are also be able to get federal programs and federal support money so that you can implement training to prepare our counselors for the generations that come through, because every generation has unique challenges, right? Okay, so that was the findings from the public hearing that we had on the bill, and we asked the school counselors to work with the administration at Guam Department of Education to see if we can have a resolve, because there was some pushback in making this a law. And I believe that there was no work done there between the GDOE administration. So now we're addressing this one last time before we move forward to have this on session floor. My concern is really focused on the suicide ideation. That SPAM has not been improved and it has not been modified to address the child under that. And so if there are any other concerns or anything that we'd like to add to further improve the bill, this is what this roundtable is for. And I'd offer the panel here before us to give testimony. We can have a dialogue. This is an informal approach to a public hearing. And so this welcomes all community members to have or give their perspective and testimony on this bill. So before we move to the senators, I believe, is there anyone else that would like to say something on what Ms. Abade said, or perhaps perhaps you met with the administration of GDOE, I do not know. And so maybe they can have input. And then I'd also like to recognize our acting superintendent. So thank you for joining us. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Lonnie.
All right. My name is Leilani Guerrero. I am an adjunct professor teaching school counseling programs at the University of Guam. At the University of Guam level, the main content of the class that I teach, or that previous professors have taught before me, was the ASCA national model. So we teach that on a dual path because at the university you have to choose. So many people believe that a counselor is a counselor is a counselor. We actually follow K-CREP standards, which is also written in the bill, following the GCEC, which is also aligned with the K-CREP standards here. And I wanted to point out that through the hearings, I've also heard a lot of misconceptions, misrepresentations of what school counselors are. For example, some of the things that were written in a PDN article saying that this bill does not address these things. But I just wanted to say that that's actually an untrue statement. Inadvertently, this bill allows for the ASCA national program, a comprehensive school counseling program, to be administered in all schools, public schools, private schools, charter schools. It's a national model that we follow even as the Guam Association of school counselors across the district of the Guam Department of Education. And what was lacking, what was stated was lacking in that bill, I just wanted to clarify that the American School Counseling Association, and us as an affiliate of the ASCA, I will say ASCA means American School Counseling Association, as members of the GASC, the Guam Association of School Counselors, we also are aligned, and you can also tap into us because we meet with the American School Counseling Association regularly. So in regards to the deficits of what was stated from the administrators, specifically in that article, Nadine Cepeda had said, well, it's lacking this and lacking this. What was not stated in our hearing was, actually the American School Counselor Association has position statements that address every single one of those points. We talk about suicidal ideation. There's actually a position statement on suicide. You talk about mental health programs, mental health, or addressing mental health in schools. There's another position statement on that. So it's very, very specific, and basically all the little crumbs that they said there was lacking in, we have statements that school counselors have roles in regards to all of those very deep and very hard topics that we bring up and that we meet with our students on. And there's actually, I believe, 60 position statements. I don't have to read through all of them, but they are here. And I wanted to point out that some of them to include the mental health screening, virtual school counseling was in there, suicidal ideation, trauma-informed practice was in there. We don't necessarily coordinate the tests, the district-wide assessments, but we help out because there are shared responsibilities outside of that 80% that this bill focuses on. Because if we're able to concentrate that 80% on our students, then you'll have another 20% that maybe something can fill in that the school counselor can negotiate with their principals at that level. We don't know what those issues are because we don't have the data. The data comes from every single school, individual school. And yes, that some of them mirror other schools that we can tap into and coordinate and collaborate and consult with our colleagues on how to address these issues. So this bill, yes, it may not specifically say it, but it does address these issues. Somebody asked me, what is the intent of this bill? You know, in 3 statements, can you say that? Oh my God, three sentences, I don't know, that's a lot, especially coming from me. But I thought about it, and you know, the first thing I said, well, it provides the minimum requirements, education and training for school counselors. To have that, what they get through their trainings at the school, at the universities, at least to have that in place. Right? It's not only just the minimum requirements, but also the training, the professional development that they can have. These are all things that can be tasked upon that are generalized in the bill, but it can be made specific at the school level. It was very, very disappointing. I try not to get very passionate about this because I'm a school counselor. I teach and train school counselors at the university level. The disconnect happens when they get into the school sites because they're tasked with so many inappropriate duties that they can't reach that 80%. And there's actually templates and documents from the American School Counselor Association that we have actually adopted and tried to put into the SOP at the GDOE that's specific to the American School Counseling national model. So even the GDOE has already adopted under an SOP this the school counseling programs. The ASCA national model is a comprehensive, data-driven model that reaches 100% of your students. Not 20%, or maybe even higher because of COVID. It reaches all of them, you know, and it's not just about their emotional needs, it's also about their career and their academic needs. So I heard a lot of testimony about the emotional needs, the suicidal ideation, but let's not forget about those areas too, that we need to be able to address at our school level for every single student. So again, inadvertently it says that there. And I also wanted to point out that in regards to the GCEC, the intent of the training and development, we tried to mirror the GCEC. So if by chance that was overlooked in the bill, we would like that in there. We want to make sure that it's aligned with GCEC, that there's no problems in hiring future counselors, and many of them are master graduates because it's a graduate counseling program. The initial school counselor that does have a non-renewable certification, that can only go so far. But we don't want to disclude them because these are interested bachelor graduates that want to go into a counseling program and help our students. And maybe they just want to dabble a little bit and take some classes, which I actually recommend for all school administrators to do, because maybe they need this class as well, so that they can see what their school counselors can administer at their school sites. So that's a disconnect, and you know, it's very disheartening when I'm up there at the graduate students telling them, when you get into the GDOE, it might be a little bit different. And this is where I teach about advocacy and raising your voice and talking to your school principals and negotiating and collaborating with them. That's the possibility. Maybe that's that 20% that could be taken care of outside of the 80% that should be focused on our students. Because if this bill is not passed, I think it's a very big detriment to those students. And as a school counselor for 10 years, I can personally say that all those extra inappropriate school counseling duties definitely took me away from my students. And that was something that I had hard to rectify every school year. So that's why my voice became louder. And I still push for that because I know that the ones who will definitely benefit outside of the school counselors are going to be our children who need our school counselors. Sure, they have the teachers there firsthand, but if you have a qualified, certified school counselor who has graduated from a program that has all of these things in place, then you know that they're giving the best care. And for those initial and temporary school counselors, they can still learn from their colleagues and possibly even move on to become full certified professional and master school counselors. I had a hard time trying to figure out why would this not look good for our students? What is it? Why would they not want it? And then I hear the little piecemeal, so I just wanted to make sure that I had rebutted that to let them know, anyone who'd read that report or that PDN article, no, we do address those issues. Every single one of them that they had said that we don't, we do. And I wanted to make that very clear today. So thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie. Stella?
The Honorable Senators of the Guam, 36th Guam Legislature, good evening, and to all our... Okay. To the 36th Guam Legislature, Senators, Honorable Senators, good evening. To our Acting Superintendent, good evening. And to my colleagues, Ms. Marie Alvaran, and also, I think, from GCEC, good evening, everyone. We are writing you today to express our support to pass Bill number 254-36 as a public law. We are grateful for all members of the 36th Guam Legislature, especially the Education Committee, that oversees legislative policies pertinent to support all in our educational system. We are in support of this legislation, sponsored by Senator Telena Nelson, Senator Amanda Shelton, and Senator Clinton Ridgewell. The bill is very important to us for the following reasons. Number one, to strengthen and support the school counseling profession by defining the qualification, scope of practice, ethics, and standards of school counselors in the elementary, middle, and high school levels, which is aligned with the American School Counseling Association national model, adopted by GDOE since 2014, SOP 1200-21, Guam Comprehensive School Counseling Program, K-12. Number 2, to ensure that all students are supported academically, socio-emotionally, and are college and career ready, the SOP 1200-021 Comprehensive School Counseling Program must be implemented with fidelity. The primary responsibility of a school counseling director, coordinator in the district is to support the development and implementation of school counseling programs based on the identified needs of the students in the individual school building and in the district. Therefore, school counselors need a school counselor director in the district with a certified master school counselor certification K-12 by the Guam Commission for Educators Certification. Number 3, to ensure that school counselors are being tasked appropriate duties, which are based on ethical principles and standards of the school counseling profession. If ethical boundaries are not respected, it may lead to violation of the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment and the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. These two federal laws are actually mirrored in the local Guam laws that we have at this point in time. Or if we violate this, as we have been trained in our sessions with SCPD, we might possibly be met with legal consequence. And so we would like to really allow the public to know that this is not for school counselors. This bill is for all the students. When a school counselor is aware how to take care of all the students in Tier 1, giving them curriculum classes about mindfulness, mindful meditation, wellness, then they're able to regulate their emotions, especially in this pandemic time where they're so angry. Our kids now are so angry, they're so anxious, they're so depressed. And when counselors are equipped with those skills, level 1, Tier 1, and Tier 2 would be some of the kids, and Tier 3, few of them, and then refer the kids out of the agency because Department of Education is not a mental health institution. We are an educational institution. So we know our lane, and we need to follow that lane. My personal experience of coordinating testing 1 year was when I also have 10 kids who wants to injure themselves doing the slashing of the wrist. So what will I do? What did I do? I have to be very creative and ask my team to take care of the testing and focus on those 10 kids with my administrator to right away respond to their needs at that point in time. What if I did not have that quick thinking to be creative to help them? Where would those 10 be, right? They may be dead. But then we have to really respect what lane we are in. So I'd like to share a metaphor maybe. In the construction industry, if we're building a house, you have the carpenters, the plumbers, and electricians. In the school system for student support, we have school counselors, school psychologists, and school social workers. Would you like the plumber to take care of the carpentry work, or the carpenter to take care of the electrical wirings of your house? So we need all the stakeholders. We're not fighting anyone here, where we really want to collaborate. And we're very passionate about it because the lives of our students are very much important. So this is our last point. Thank you for your time and attention. We appreciate your work in this legislative journey. We are grateful for sponsoring this bill that will support the work of school counselors for all students, not just 1%, for all students in collaboration with other education stakeholders. With much respect, this statement is from Nadine Cruz, GAS President, and Stella Calata, immediate past President. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Is there anyone else that would like to say something? Yes? Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention tonight. You know, I've been in the department. I'm sorry, I'm David Pexa. I'm a school counselor. I've been in the department now, starting my 4th year. My parents were career teachers. I just wanted to provide some context, and I think what's been happening is for a long time, school counselors haven't had a job description. There hasn't been clarity on exactly what our roles and responsibilities have been. And so, thus, over time, things have been added to our plate that are taking us away from dealing directly with students. And I think it's really come to a head because we got to the point where we crossed the line where we've been asked to take on a little bit more responsibility when we're dealing with suicidal ideation. Social and emotional wellness has become more of a concern and priority nationally. And you know, that gets into dicey water. Nobody wants to have a child commit suicide and be responsible for that. And because we're distracted with other things, we can't get. That requires a lot of time and attention to really give that child attention. And if we're distracted and we're looking at the numbers of students we're serving, you know, the Ask a National model recommends a ratio of 250 to 1. And you know, I'm not sure that's possible right now. We got to deal with what we have. But when we have some, like I think Ms. Nelson in her statement talked about having 400 students, when we're distracted with these other things, we can't take the time with those students, and it puts us as counselors in a difficult position, but it also puts the child in a difficult position, and we want to make sure the child's getting the care that's necessary. So I think this is coming to a head, and it's crossed the line where we really need to get things ironed out. To Mr. Santos's credit, he's only been on the job for a little bit, but he did meet with us, our work team leaders, and I left that meeting feeling very assured that things are going to, that he's going to be actively participating in trying to resolve this, because I think actually resolving it within the department would have been a much better solution. However, his position, we don't know how long he's going to be there. So we want to continue to work and collaborate with him, but we also want to try and get this ironed out. We can't, a perfect example in what's missing as far as leadership and job description and so forth is professional development's happening today and tomorrow. Counselors don't have one scheduled, right? And we can't just go rogue and schedule our own thing. We want administrators to know that this is sanctioned by the department and that we need to be doing our training so we can get on the same page. Some of us have developed some great tools for talking to kids about mental health, what mental health is, and we want to get on the same page and collaborate and have some best practice sessions, but that's not happening. So what we're looking at is we're trying to get all of that resolved so that when we show up, we know what we're doing and everybody else knows what we're supposed to be doing so we can actually do our job and be effective. If we want to be an elite department, an elite program, we need all departments firing on all cylinders, and we have 85 school counselors who are passionate about helping our kids, who understand the trouble with substance abuse and alcoholism and suicide, and we want to be able to be a proactive force. That's another thing I wanted to point out. I think there is some confusion that a counselor is a counselor, but just like on a football team, not all football players are the same. Wide receivers perform differently than defensive ends, and we're seeing this confusion about what the role is, and the role between community counselors and school counselors, from my perspective, is school counselors are far more proactive, and we are teachers. In the pay scale, I'm a teacher 4, right? And so I think by changing our duties, and especially in the tricky situation with being a reactive force and dealing with situations where kids have already voiced suicidal ideation, that's starting getting into a reactive action. And I think we want to stay within our scope of expertise in being a teacher and being proactive and letting the mental health experts deal with the reactive side of it after it's gone too far. So I think that's everything I think that would be valuable to add. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Okay, good afternoon, and senators and co-teachers and counselors. Okay, I'm Marie Virata Halaran, and I am a registered nurse by profession. And just like any other professional careers, we follow the Guam Nurses Association organization based on the American Nurses Association. So there are ethical practices that we do. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is suicide. I have helped maybe about 10,000 students that have been thinking of harming themselves. And I think that because the suggested session is before it was 3 to 7 sessions. I think 3 to 7 sessions is one too many. I believe, and this is from my heart because I have helped so many kids, and there are models that you follow. And if there is one that fits the model, because there's like CPRR, that's a code, if they're really suicidal, things like that. If they have a current plan, or if they're in pain, or they feel alone, there are things that you follow. And if that shows, then that person is a high risk. You're not gonna go and say, come back tomorrow. You have to, hit help the child when she's expressing. And again, I'm very passionate because I don't like any kids to be dying because we had overlooked someone who's thinking of suicide. And sometimes kids, they kind of laugh it out, but then in your guts, this child is really suicidal. In fact, over the last week, I started training, do suicide training intervention. And in that training, you ask questions about background information. And when I was looking at all those sheets of paper, there was one person that said, I have attempted this week, and over this weekend, I really would like to die. And I already have a plan. So these things are, you can't wait and say, no, don't do that. But you need to go there and help out. And this is what I feel. Because I have been in the middle school, Dedido Middle School, and I have been in elementary school, and I have also helped high schoolers. And from my experience, one session is very vital to help the child. And we need to get the experts. And just like Stella is saying, when I was at Dedido Middle School, I actually had over 2,000 students because the military kids were going there too. And, you can be overwhelmed, but then you just have to do it. And Mrs. Judy Wanpat was my principal, and I was very new. And over the weekend, there were 3 11-year-olds that completed suicide. So that was my first time. I didn't even know the kids because I was pretty new in that school. And that's why I think senators and Francis, director, we need to be proactive. We need to push ourselves and say, hey, one session is, we need to do something. We're not going to do 3 7 sessions before we assess this child. So that is my take, and I'm very passionate about it. And please pass this bill. It's just very sad. And the person that we helped, I am so glad. I had to escort that person to mental health. I stayed there up to, I think I was there like 11, and we waited outside. Anybody have been to mental health? You wait outside. It's so hot. But, I told that person, it's okay, I'll be here with you. I stayed back. And it's just so important. And thank you. I'm just so passionate about it. So,
Thank you, Ms. Holler. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak? No? Would you like to speak? Okay. I know so.
But for what?
Okay. Acting Superintendent Francis Santos.
Oh, I'm back. Old hat at this. Okay, so, thank you very much for the invitation, of course, to come and discuss this very delicate, yet very important bill that you have before us. All I ask is that you give me a chance to digest all this stuff, that it's coming in just massive droves into me. I was fortunate enough to meet with Mr. Pexa, Julina Garola, and Ms. Brenda Porta, team leaders of our school health counselor team. And I was also informed that we have 82 of them within our very large school system, dealing with basically 25,000 school children with very emotional issues and a topic such as suicide, which is, again, sometimes we tend to ignore, but, glaring in our face. The discussion that I had with their team, obviously, was one of the failure of the leadership within GDOE to meet with them. I got that very clear in the meeting, that that's all they wanted, was at least the opportunity. Yes, they met with Mr. John Fernandez, but there was no follow-up. And how can you complete a task if you don't follow up with what they were asking for? So moving forward in the discussion, and I see parts of the discussion, Dave, embedded in the bill. And one of the takeaways that I got from the meeting was, we want to be recognized, and that part I think can be done very easily from the administrators level like myself. The issue of professional development, that's almost like a buzzword if in GDOE, right? There's professional development for almost everything. Okay, what's one more to add to the growing list of professional development? For example, 82 school counselors that are within our system. I was informed by our team that all they have to do is ask, and I said, oh, that's interesting. Why didn't you reach out to them and ask? So I assured Dave and the team leaders there that bring this matter before me, and I will address it with the support services side of this division, and we will provide you the necessary professional development days for you and your team. The other takeaway that I got in the discussion with them was that they're looking for a leader, okay? A leader within their group. If you're as large as 82, that's actually larger, almost double the size of the school health nurses that we have. They number only 41 within the schools. They number 82, or at least 84, I think is the number now. Yeah. So again, that they need to be, like you said, provide us with a job description. I think that's self-explanatory. Okay, that's already embedded within our HR system. But more importantly, I just read through this briefly, and there is basically a job description, but job requirement for your director/coordinator. I believe I can accomplish that at the level of the superintendent with the concurrence of the board for establishment of a division head for this particular set of certified professionals within our system. I meet tomorrow with the chairman and the vice chairperson, and it's just a list of things that I can bring up as part of the focus work that we're continuing to do, and we'll add this, to the discussion, and hopefully will lead to the approval of establishing the goals of what this particular group of professionals are seeking within the Guam Department of Education. So I'm just asking for time, okay? support, I support the intent of the bill. I just ask that, give us the opportunity first from the administrator's level to accomplish what you're going to try to do in this bill. And if we can do it, then we really don't need law. There's certain sections I think that should be codified, and I'll address that with our legal team and find which sections will deal best with how to move this process forward. I just met just today, Lonnie. We have to work together. I get it. Okay? And I will assure you that you will meet with our team. Okay? I asked Dave and Jolene and Ms. Brenda Porter, we'll get that meeting. Our goal right now, quite honestly, we have to open our schools in basically one day. We open on Wednesday, and at the very front of that is 25,000 kids that are going to find a new home. So that's basically what I'm asking right now of my senator colleagues is give me and our team and the school counselors the opportunity to sit down and basically come up with a framework of how this whole process should work, and with the goal of establishing what they need to get to make the system better for our kids. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up for our senators. Senator Moylan, do you have any comments or questions for the panel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the presenters, and thank you, Acting Superintendent, for your cooperation working with them, and welcome aboard. So, it's interesting, we have a UOG, you can get a degree in counseling, so then when you go apply at the school, I don't know what you apply for because there's no job description.
They follow under teacher status, but there are school counseling positions available. Can you talk to the mic, Lonnie? Sorry about that. Yes, we follow under teacher status. So this bill actually separates us from the chapter, I believe it's chapter 5, is that correct? And we create our own chapter under school counselors so that we're separated because the duties are definitely not similar. So we do some education parts, yes, we go into the classrooms, and this is what Dave was talking about, being proactive versus reactive, and that's part of the Ask a National model as well, and that 80% of time that's being spent with the students. And that's true. When I went into the school counseling, it was a teacher job description or job announcement, not school counseling announcement. Very different from many places in the States.
Would you, then you said, welcome to the real world, this is how it operates, for now, right? So
And I've been trying, since I was at the GDOE, from 2009 as a school counselor until 2020, it was a push to get a position description. There is an existing SOP, the Guam Counseling Association, K-12, with a proposed position description. However, that SOP is now outdated because it's following the third model, not the fourth model. We follow and teach the fourth model of the ASCA national program, national model.
And there was a comment about the Guam Federations of Teachers in favor, not in favor of?
Oh, they were in favor.
In
fact,
favor.
they gave us kudos. And that was another thing that came up that was one of the inconsistencies that I talked about, the confusion, because we actually put that into the GDOE GFT board union contract, and even stipulations of the GDOE board union contract were misrepresented from the administrators or the I guess the school level leader, the school district leader at the time. It's calling, for substitute teachers. And under the provisions of the GFT contract, we're not supposed to be substituting for teachers. And if we do, we present our own lessons. So everything was stipulated here, and I was thinking like, I had got to speak up here because it's in the GFT contract. What they're saying for you to do is actually already in here for you not to do.
That's the additional duties that you're talking about. You then become a substitute teacher.
Some of them.
That could be one of them, yeah. What are the other
A mental health professional, a therapist. School counselors do not do therapy. In fact, you need 3,000 hours of supervised counseling experience in order to get a licensure for that, which not all of your school counselors have. You do have a handful that have them, but not all.
Which is, you don't want the electrician doing the plumbing, right? Your
You
example.
need to be licensed. Department of Labor will run after you. You need to be licensed to do that.
Yes, it's a metaphor because I know that with Guam, Department of Labor will run after the contractor if the carpenters are doing the job of an architect right? And why can't we take care of the human beings that we build in the school system, their wellness, their well-being, their health? And this is that law. This is about our kids. We'll take care of them. But we need the protection of the law to take care of our kids.
So why is that being additional duty being given to you? Why do you think the reason is?
It's a terrible thing to say, yes, lack of staff, no one else to do it. You know, we've heard that over the years, to give it to the school counselor because they don't have anything to do. Knowing full, well, and that's just a big, you know, smack to say, well, we are master graduates who went through all this training not to be a substitute teacher, not to be a therapist, although they can choose to become therapists when they graduate from the program. But that's the path that I was talking about. You have a mental health community track, and you have the school counseling track.
So if you're able to focus on your duty, you recognize the students that have that tendency, whether it be the slashing of the wrist or what they write down, they're considering suicide. You understand the hours that is needed to talk with them. You can prevent that if you're not a substitute teacher for math, science, or sweeping the floors.
Or doing the district-wide assessments, child study teams such as that, yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you for your presentation, and I appreciate it. I wish your acting superintendent best of luck too. But I can see where the acting superintendent is coming from, trying to repair it within, right, than a public law. But you come to this point where you're asking through your senator here on what we can do, and it's obviously a good bill. So we'll see what we can do, but wanting to work with your acting superintendent as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Senator Joanne Brown.
Once again, Madam Chair, I'll defer to my colleagues that arrived before me.
Senator Tello Tideway.
Thank you, Senator Brown, for that. And thank you for being here today. I don't know if you were there, some of you were there during the first public hearing on the bill. Over 2 hours, you know, that we were on there, almost 4, yeah, 4 hours. And Senator Brown and I were there through the beginning to the end to listen to what I had to say, because personally I think this is very important, the job that you do. But I also think that the process is very important too on how to proceed for something like this, because you might be setting precedents. You know, next thing you know, we're going to have another group of individuals coming here who have a different job description, want their certain rules and what they can do and what they don't have to do anymore. I mean, I think we're all in here today because we care about our students. And, you know, whatever position you have at DOE, it's all about the students and helping them out. And if it means doing a little extra, you know, to your foot forward, I don't want to stop you guys from doing it. So I don't want this legislation to hinder you or put you in something you're doing illegal or could provide some kind of recommendation toward your, you know, helping a student out. That's not part of your rules and guidelines. So I don't want that to happen either. Unfortunately, I just received this bill, the substituted version today. So I do agree with the superintendent, acting superintendent, to provide a little bit more time, especially for Senator Brown and I, who were there for 4 hours on the first bill, to at least look at some of the new testimonies that come in here and review this legislation, because there was quite a bit of concerns, quite a bit. And I just don't want people pegging one against the other. I took the opportunity, you know, to look at DOA's position when it comes to providing guidelines. Definitely when it comes to, you know, position descriptions, which is usually a DOE function. But because DOA function, sorry, I'm probably going to get them mixed up, but you know what I'm saying. So DOA and DOE, they have their own HR departments that they work with. And even though Department of Education is considered a line item, agency. Technically, it is, but it really isn't, because it gives the authority for DOE to provide the rules and regulations, working in tandem with DOA to make sure everything's okay, because ultimately it goes to the board. The board makes the decision. So if we were to do this process the way that most position descriptions or categories are done, we would do it through a process that's not in legislative form. Because I just don't want to open up, Pandora's box at this point. So the process, what I was told, is that, working with, of course, the superintendent and the counselors or anybody who's interested in making any kind of changes, would be to get together, and I think that's the effort of the acting superintendent, and I mean, you guys have to give him some credit. He's doing his best, only 14 days and counting that he's been in office and trying to address all the other issues. On top of that, we're opening up school. On top of that, to me, this bill does not come at a good time right now, I mean, considering. But I do have an issue with going through the legislature to do something like this. I do, but it doesn't mean I'm not concerned about providing that category, because salary-wise under DOE, it does put the counselors in a different category. By the way, who does work at DOE as a counselor here? And did you get the pay raise? Okay, so you are under a teacher status to get that pay raise, because technically there's really no counselor, guidance counselor under DOE right now, right? So if you do go under guidance counselor, that means you're going to have a whole different category, and are you considered a teacher to get that salary? So that needs to be addressed. And that's why DOE, as well as the counselors, those who wanting to provide some kind of identity and description, should work together with the administration as well as DOE, and then go through the board of directors, the board members. So that's going to be the next issue, is your salaries. That's going to be a huge issue on the salaries coming up.
Right.
It was mentioned earlier, inappropriate duties.
Senator Brown, the inappropriate duties is not in the bill.
No, I do know that.
Okay.
But it was a comment
Or
made
Senator Tidegre.
by a particular, I think from EOG, let me see, Leilani, is that right? Okay. Leilani, when you were providing your testimony, and you were just talking, you mentioned something, you don't want to do any inappropriate duties. You didn't mention that was in there, but you said the word inappropriate duties. My question to you is, what is considered inappropriate duties for a counselor? Can you give me some examples, please?
And it's good that you asked that, because I wanted to actually clarify two things.
Thank you.
The inappropriate duties is actually a list provided by the American School Counseling Association, because they've been through this. It's been 20 years since they actually changed the name from school guidance counselor to school counselor. But here we are 20 years later, and we still haven't gotten that changed. I know that this bill will directly discuss that, minus the inappropriate duties, of course. The inappropriate, like I said, we didn't just come up with this list. It was a part of our executive summary for the American School Counseling Association, written there. Not job description, but definitely things that will take you away from the time that you spent with your students. So this has been practiced, it's been put in documents, it's been put in 1, 2, 3 models.
Can you talk into the mic? I'm sorry, I know you want to be respectful and look this way,
but loud in my ear.
It's very bad in this way. And if you could just get to that inappropriate duties, I just want to get to that point.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, so the inappropriate duties that are actually listed in the previous bill were taken from the ASCA executive summary and the ASCA portion of the delivery for school counselors.
What are they?
Did you hear that part?
Can I give you one example?
Sure.
As a school counselor, I need to maintain and manage my relationships with all kids so that they feel safe. So being asked to discipline a child would be an inappropriate duty. And that's in alignment with the Ask a National model, right? I'm not a disciplinarian.
Do you guys do that now, sir? This is
I put
David,
my foot
right?
down. Yes, ma'am.
David.
I don't. I have a great relationship with my administrator, and she understands why. And so, I'll have counseling and talk about, hey, this is destructive behavior, and this is why we don't do it in school.
Yeah.
But, as soon as I start disciplining, then maybe they don't feel safe, and they won't come to me with a personal matter. So that's one of those that's very important. And I think we mentioned, too, substituting, being a substitute teacher.
How is that inappropriate, substituting a class?
Because we have our own...
You have a certificate, if you're certified as a teacher as well, right?
Right, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not certified as a teacher, I'm certified as a counselor.
Okay.
But it takes us away from our daily tasks and our daily duties so we can do our housekeeping and what needs to be happening. What I do in my program is I go out and I talk to the kids. I go to the classrooms, I schedule with all my teachers, or all the classes come to my classroom, and I deliver lessons that way. So if I have to substitute for a teacher who's out sick, that stops. And that's not what I was hired to do. That's making up for a shortcoming of not having enough substitute teachers, right? And so we're
So what does the
enabling-
administration, what does the administration do in this circumstances like this? I mean, you're very close with your administration, you mentioned, and if you come into a particular situation where someone's out sick or anything like that, and these kids are in the classroom, and there's nobody else to take care of them, would it be easier to place maybe a school aide in there versus a counselor?
And I'm also going to qualify and say, I work at an elementary school, and I don't face some of the bigger challenges that some of the high school does.
Yeah.
And I think on rare occasion, if it's an emergency, but you know how it is where
But if
it
this bill
becomes
were
the
to pass-
standard that, oh,
But if
somebody's
this
out.
bill were to pass, you won't have that opportunity to do so.
I could, but I won't be required to. If I can work it
Okay.
out and I can manage it.
Yeah.
But I think what we're trying to avoid is we're trying to run things with integrity and doing it right way, and not just using the counselor because it's convenient, right? And so we're drawing a line, and I think when I think about this, when I put this into context, we're establishing boundaries, right? And having those be enforceable, because that hasn't been the case thus far.
So Dave, then it would, based on this new, because like I said, I just received this and I'm trying to double task, listening to what you have to say as well as trying to read it through. What you're saying here is that if this were to pass, or if it goes through the process and everything that you've gone through, and DOE and DOA does that, and then it goes to the board and is confirmed from there through resolution, and it's all done. Are you saying that if the bill does not prohibit you from substituting into a class, it just gives you the choice? So you can tell your administrator, I don't want to substitute, find somebody else, right? Exactly? Is that the case?
I'm not 100% sure.
You're not 100%. Well, thank you for being honest on that. So I'll look to see.
I didn't write it, so
Okay.
I'm not as go ahead.
Just to clarify,
Okay.
the inappropriate duties was removed so that the administrators could also ensure that there is flexibility when the school is in need of other things, perhaps that the counselor could address or could assist in.
And
It does not give the counselor the ability to say, no, I'm not going to do that because of this law, if this bill passes. It does not give the counselor that leeway. It gives the counselor the reassurance that everyone is aware of what they should be doing.
Okay.
So
I'll
they
read,
cannot say no.
Yeah, well, I'll read through I have more time
so
to read to
just
make
to
sure that doesn't
clarify
happen.
further,
So, Leilani, is there
the
anything
only
else you
thing-
wanted to add
excuse
to
me, I
that?
just want to clarify further that this bill really hasn't changed much. The big piece, the meat of the bill that has changed is to remove the inappropriate duties so the administrator still has the flexibility to ask the counselor for assistance.
Leilani, did you want to add? Are you okay with that?
I'm okay. And I
Okay.
wanted to also clarify, remember that you have 20% that you can work in collaboration and even negotiation with your principal. So it's not to say a big flat no, it's to say, Dave, do you have time today? if you're not, if you're not seeing students, if you can substitute this classroom. That gives that principal that leeway to make that negotiation, and Dave can very well professionally say, sir, ma'am, I have students that I'm seeing today. I have classrooms that I'm going to today. You know, at least then give them that, because the substitute teaching comes on a daily basis. And if you're going to have a school counselor who's a master graduate go into a classroom to sub every single time, then you might as well just give that duty over to or hire more school counselors to do substitute teaching. That's just, it just doesn't make sense to me, actually, because
Thank you. Yeah, thank you,
they're
Leilani.
educated. They're educated, school counselors are educated beyond the bachelor, they're master graduates,
Yeah. Okay.
and that comes with the pay too, eventually, hopefully.
Thank you.
May I say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you a question. So, yeah.
Well, I think,
Yeah, go ahead,
think that
please.
this situation has gone to Senator Nelson because the school counselors have been trying very hard to work with Director Fernandez since 2019, and nothing has been accomplished.
It's kind of, yep.
So I think that's the reason why they want to be, you know, they want to have standards, just like nurses and doctors. You know, it doesn't mean when I was working as a nurse, it doesn't mean I'm not going to help students beyond my work. In fact, at Agana Heights one time, we went home at 2 a.m. because we were waiting for CPS. I was ever willing to do it. But then, you know, there are specific tasks and qualified professional. And you cannot just say, okay, the clerk is not here, do this, type in all the absenteeism or something. It's just not.
Thank you. Okay. Maria, you know, I was going to ask you a question because you talked about suicide,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Quite a
yes,
bit.
ma'am.
And I'm, you know, I'm trying to go through this bill that, are you saying that this would give the counselors more time to assess those students who may be suicidal, or to be proactive as, you know, going into, maybe Dave can even chime in on this too, you know, to be more proactive in, you know, assessing students who may be going down this dark tunnel and try to help them? I mean, where is it in this bill that puts emphasis on, because, you know, suicide, the word suicide came up many times from you, and I was just trying to find a where in the bill that would give more of the counselors their time and effort towards something like this in this bill.
No, what I was trying to do was clarify things, because in the spam, or they were told that they were going to see the child, I think in the beginning, 7 sessions before they referred to the therapist, or, you know. But to me, that is 7 too many, because if a child tells me that, Mrs. Halloran, I'm thinking of harming myself, that alone, even though you think, oh, you're just joking or something, you don't really know. So that is a high risk. And that's how I'm able to save lives, you know.
Yeah, I do
Because-
understand, but
yeah.
I don't see in this.
Because it says there,
Yeah.
now it went down to 3 sessions. I don't know what, if they changed the spam.
Okay.
Because before it was 7 sessions.
Dave?
And if I'm dealing with a child, 7 sessions, I won't be able to sleep.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking, wow, 7 sessions before I can refer this child to a therapist.
Okay, I see. I'll look at that section. Dave, did you want to add to that? I saw you pulling your.
I did. And, you know, I think you spoke to assessment, and that's what we want to get out of. That's a different mindset. It's a different preparation. It's a different management. How I would approach that is, and I've developed a model that was put together by a psychiatrist, and I go out and when I did my internship at a high school, and I went out and I taught that model, that this is what healthy psychology is. This is what boundaries is. This is understanding anger and what your options are. You know, are you being destructive? Are you being constructive? Are you being passive, right? And then I talked to them about what they can do in terms of understanding healthy psychology, which helps me to help the kids to help themselves, right? And so then if I have a child come to me and talk about being suicidal, I want to get parents and a mental health professional who has a dedicated time and schedule to follow up, because that child needs, a lot of children who are suicidal, they don't feel like they matter. They don't feel like they're valued. So if that task is put on a very busy person's plate, there's a good chance that's going to slip off, and it's going to reinforce that idea that they don't matter, and I might even push them further. So that's what's really putting us in a dicey situation. It's a lot of responsibility, and it's a different preparation. It's a different mindset. It takes a lot of time to be fully present and engaged when dealing with something with those kind of difficult emotions. It's not just like tasking, right? And it requires a lot of emotional energy too. Yeah. And so, and that is a big part of the problem. It's ramping us up to do more of that community counseling stuff, and we want to scale that back and stay in our lane, because we're asked to do a lot of stuff already. And it's a massive amount of energy, emotional energy and mental energy, to sit there and be fully present and say, nothing else in the world matters but what me and you are doing here. And that's how you start pulling kids out of suicidal ideation. And then, but it's also incumbent on getting the parents involved so that they're aware of, hey, we need to start paying attention and do some lifestyle changes because this kid is missing out. And then maybe even getting to a professional counselor who has a schedule and can schedule kids and stay on top of it, because that's what they do professionally, who can also then maybe follow up and see if the child has a biological problem and might need some medication to help do that. So it's a very involved problem, and I hope I was able to convey the trouble we're having, why we don't want to get into that. Because, you know, you look at how many students we have to manage. In high school, you're doing scheduling, you're involved in clubs maybe. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're helping kids with credits. You're helping them get set up for after-school programs so they can graduate. Kids are coming to you for scholarship information. There's all this stuff happening. And that can easily lead to conditions whereby the kid that needs your full time and attention doesn't get it, and then they pull the trigger. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right, and that's a big problem.
I think to add to that, they're also asked to assess like low, medium, high. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very heavy assessment, because just one of the things that you look for that's present, it's already high. There's a medium, high. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dave. Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Blessa Ramos. I work at Simon Sanchez High School. I've been a counselor for 13 years now. And just to add on to the suicide situation, this bill is actually we just want to ask as counselors for a chance to quickly refer the student who are in need of help, who are thinking of committing suicide. When we are asked to use an assessment like what Ms. Holleran mentioned, first of all, we are not licensed to assess our students. Our school counselors what we have to do is to quickly refer out to the professionals. That's why we hire them in the Department of Education. We give them to the proper professionals who can take care of this situation. When you ask the counselors to do therapy, to see the students for how many times, we have 1,600 students at Simon Sanchez High School with 6 counselors. I have about 270-some students that comes to me. On average, probably in 1 week, I would have I'll just say at the least 2 students who's gonna come to me and tell me they want to commit suicide. What happens to my 276 students that I have to tend to? That I have to prepare schedules for. I have to make sure they're meeting the graduation requirements. I have to make sure we're preparing them for college. We have to make sure we're helping them with financial aid. Our goal as Guam Department of Education is to prepare our students to be good citizens of our community. Now, if you're expecting a counselor to be therapists, which we are not licensed for, which clearly explains on our certification requirement what we are licensed for to do, then ma'am, we cannot service the rest of the students who needs our help. Because taking care of one student who wants to commit suicide, honestly, personally, it takes even my personal time. I care for the students, that's why I'm in this profession. Now, taking away 1 week of my time, even longer than that, because it depends on how this kid, a continuous follow-up, how are you feeling today, how are you feeling a week after, just to make sure they don't kill themselves because you don't want anyone else to die. That takes a lot of time from the rest of the students who needs other help that we can provide as school counselors. I hope I make sense.
No, no, you do, and you're right. I don't think any of you who are counselors did not become a counselor not to help people, you know, especially the students as they're growing older. And that was my question was, why was suicide always brought up? You know, is it something that's required in this bill that you have to address?
Suicide
and that's
is
why
brought up in the
I brought up
SOP.
that situation. But now, you know, explaining what you. But I'm pretty sure if a situation comes in your way and a student, it comes up to you and says something like that, you're not going to turn a blind eye and say, this is not my responsibility. You're going to, you know, call the principal, the administration, and bring somebody from Department of Public Health and, or, you know, behavioral wellness to come in and assist. But I just wanted to find out why suicide was always brought up here. And that was my only question to it. So other than that, other than that, I'm going to go ahead and allow my other colleague to say something. Dave, is it real short?
Yeah, real short.
Okay.
I think the suicide has come up because with the district psychologists and seeing the trends with suicide, it's become more of our priority, and they're trying to help solve that problem. And so they're installing that into the SOP, mandating that as, you know, our standard operating procedures for school counselors. And so I think we've been speaking tonight about why that's problematic on a number of different levels. And we're trying to stop that so we can really get the kids the help they need rather than getting a half.
Well, if anybody comes up to you and tells you that they're going to commit suicide, is something very, I mean, that's priority.
Thank you.
You know, priority and not the, you know, like, oh, I can't take care of you because I got 200 more students to take care of. That's, I don't think that's the case.
Thank you, Senator Tyree. We only have 12 more minutes.
Okay,
Senator Brown.
yeah, well, that was my last one anyways, and I appreciate again, I don't mind hanging out with you guys
Thank you, Senator
and talking
Tyree.
with you. It's very
Thank
good
you.
information.
Senator
Good
Brown,
information
can
from
you
here
please, do you
again.
have any questions
Thank
for
you,
the panel?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I didn't realize after sitting here close to 2 hours that I have a time of 12 minutes even to make a comment.
We're actually over. It was only supposed to be an hour for the roundtable
well, I'm
hearing. Just
sorry,
for the
I'm
record, we had a
sorry.
roundtable hearing
I
on
patiently
October
waited,
5th,
as I always do at
2021,
these hearings,
and then
so-
we had the bill hearing
Madam
on
Chair, I'm
January,
sorry,
March,
you're going to allow me the
April
opportunity
5th,
to speak,
2021.
or are you going to continue to talk over me?
Senator Brown, please continue.
Well, I don't get overtime. I don't know what overtime is. You know, I did sit through the hearing that we had earlier this year with regards to this issue, and you all have valid concerns. But and how I look at this then, as I look at it now, is this is a breakdown in the Department of Education, and certainly the acting superintendent, I'm sure, has taken note of it, because this is really, you know, in our work as passing legislation, to do position descriptions is not really what I would look at, and certainly my colleague here, who I served with in the 23rd Guam legislature, will concur, is not a normal course of events for the Guam legislature in terms of what our priorities are, which literally politicizes the process of job descriptions. And I have a problem with that, because you are only one component of the government of Guam. Then we're going to have another department or agency that has an issue with their management, and they're going to come, oh, can we legislate this and legislate that? And you will have politicians that will pander and pander, sometimes to the detriment of the operation. So that is my issue, and I really think this is a matter that should be addressed within. You have a board. You have a board that's elected, and you served on the CCU, which we created as well. You know, Well, of course, yes. We did that also for a reason, but also to make sure that there was a mechanism in place that was more close to home that can properly address these issues. I don't see it as a priority of the legislature to start getting into the weeds and politicizing the process of setting position descriptions within the government of Guam. That I have an issue with. Not the issues that you're bringing forth, because I've operated agencies. We have sat in the seat of operating agencies, and these are really things. If you weren't able to address it with your former superintendent, I mean, he's not here to answer why, I don't know. There's internal politics in every organization. DOE is the largest we have. I'm sure the problems are infinite. But to me, this is not the mechanism to do this. To politicize this now, then I might get the firefighters next. I might get the Department of Corrections next. And the expectation that somehow the legislature is going to start dictating what the position descriptions are in the government of Guam, I think it's highly inappropriate.
Can I just interject here, because I wanted to also say this earlier when I was talking to Senator Tello, is this is not precedence. This is not the first time that this has happened.
Irrelevant if it is or not, in my position currently in this capacity, I just don't think it's appropriate. There's a whole lot of things every legislature is going to do, and I've sat longer than anybody else sitting at this table in the Guam legislature. There's always going to be different members that want to do different things for different reasons at different times. I just don't think this is the appropriate mechanism. There are mechanisms set up in the government of Guam to appropriately address job descriptions. There's opportunities to review job descriptions, alter job descriptions. There's a procedure to do that. You obviously have a breakdown in your system. That's why you're here.
We wanted to follow the existing law for licensed professional counselors, but make it for
I
school
understand your
counselors.
point. I have been listening. I think we're the same group that was there for the 4-hour presentation months ago. I got that. But my point is I don't think this is the mechanism that it should be through our position here to legislate job descriptions, be it counselors, firefighters, DOC correction officers, whatever the case may be. And having been, almost half my career in leadership and running agencies in this government, I know that mechanism exists. If there's a breakdown, and obviously there is a breakdown department for whatever reason, I don't know the history internally of how things operate effectively or ineffectively. I'm sure there's a lot of inefficiencies in DOE with its size, under the umbrella of, we have to protect and take care of our children. I've heard that time and time and time again, and I see misuse, abuse, misuse of authority. I mean, the list goes on. We've been around long enough. I've been doing this, 33, 34 years now? So, I mean, that's my position. I would, if this bill comes up before the body, that's going to be what I'm going to say, because I just don't think this is the appropriate mechanism to address what obviously is a breakdown of the mechanism of the Department of Education and its board in not properly addressing this issue. So that's my view. Francis, I want to get your input, because now that you're in this current acting capacity being presented with this, because this to me is something you could easily mitigate.
And I'm sitting here before you saying that give me the opportunity to at least try. I see a pathway for this, okay? And the good news is that I had some dialogue already with the counselors. Now I need to circle back to the other side. There is another side to this thing. And, we sit down and collaborate like we're trained to, right? I'm hearing that that's part of your training process, is how to collaborate. So that being said, I can sit on the other side, and I've sat on the other side. I don't think it's the place, and I was sharing earlier, to air dirty laundry that we do have, okay? It's unfortunate that there was a lack of paying attention to the counselors. I get it. All I'm asking is that give me now a chance to try to fix this from what I would say the GDOE level and not have to do it in front of 15 senators. It's not the place to do it. Okay, I tried to explain that. I explained to Dave and Jolene and Brenda. It's unfortunate that it got to this point. I'm just asking the senators here, especially the chair of this committee, give me a chance to do this. Okay, and I will tell you, they know me. If I can't do it, I'll be the first to say, it's not possible. Maybe we can do it this way, but what you're asking right here, this is doable within our own framework because it's already been done. You just simply got to say, me too, to these sections of what we do within our own internal system. Okay?
And go through the process of
Yeah, there is a
implementing,
process.
right?
You know,
so
I mean, unfortunately, there is a process. The breakdown in the process was not being paid attention to, but I'm here today. Okay, and I've already started the dialogue. I want to continue the dialogue, but I think the few of us that are here today, we have to open our schools on Wednesday. And then we sit down and say, okay, you want professional development days? Got it. Okay, that's easy stuff for us to do. But I think at the end of the day, I get what you want. Okay, let me get through the process, delegate the task to somebody that's a little bit smarter than me at how to do this, and then of course we get our legal team involved and say, this is how you bring this before the 9-member board that will ultimately approve this. So I'm asking Senator Nelson, Senator Brown, and Senator Tyree, first of all, thank you for listening to us. That's a very important part of your job. And give us the opportunity to work at this, and hopefully there is no breakdown moving forward.
Well, I think it's in the front burner, obviously. And I think you're tasked with that. So I have no problem with giving you the time. I just know there's an internal process to do that, and obviously the breakdowns existed. It should be corrected. I mean, that's why you have a superintendent. That's why you have an elected board of education to address this. I mean, we're just not here to listen to, you know, why your leadership can't do its job. I mean, I hate to hear that. That's unfortunate. But, you know, in all fairness, I mean, your former superintendent's not here to answer to that. Your acting superintendent is asking for the opportunity. I would give you the opportunity because I hear your concerns. I wouldn't want to be a counselor either and being told I have to do 7 sessions with a child that is in desperate need of help. That's unreasonable. It's a total unreasonable expectation. So I just am of the opinion, yes, it might have been done. I mean, a lot of things have been done by other legislators I don't agree with. There's some being done now I don't agree with. But from my position in viewing this, I just think it should go through the proper process. And I think the Department of Education, its leadership, its board should take responsibility to do the jobs to which they have been given. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown, and thank you, Acting Superintendent. Just to clarify that the inappropriate duties for school counselor was removed from the bill. We did have a roundtable hearing on October 5th, 2021, and maybe Acting Superintendent, you would make some time to watch that, because this is where the premise of it all, where the counselors came to the legislature and said they are in breach of what they agreed upon, because they did take this up with the Guam Federation of Teachers. And so it was signed that the agreement that the counselors, or the concerns that the counselors had, that those issues would be fixed. And it was signed. And then later on, finalized SOP came out contradicting that agreement. So that would be something good for you, perhaps, to get an idea of the history and background of the situation. We did have a hearing in April 5th, 2022, and I wanted to ensure that before we moved forward, we had another roundtable hearing, giving the department time to iron out these issues within their own administration and their own leadership. I understand that you are coming into this job 15 days. However, the people that have been moving this at your level have been present working with the superintendent. So it would be good to have that discussion with them. Just a couple questions, Ms. Ramos. Are you trained and certified to address the needs of the suicide ideation in forms of therapy?
No, ma'am.
Does the current model or the current SOP and SPAM, does that require you to perform these types of therapy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that is another concern, Mr. Superintendent. You brought up professional development, but I think since you've mentioned especially that school is starting, that we need to address the proper training and certification for therapy for students that have suicide ideations, because these counselors are not trained to do so, but it is a requirement within their SOP and SPAM. And those are perhaps the big meat items that you can iron out. I would like to give you some time to address this with the counselors. And I know that school's starting, so I hope that we can make something come to fruition, something concrete addressing those issues that they brought forward, especially the challenges that they are seeing as counselors. However, we will do a follow-up later on in this month in another roundtable hearing to see, or perhaps by just a meeting, to see how the movement forward to address these counselor issues have been going. So the clock starts today. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, acting. We appreciate you coming here, and we look forward to your leadership and also to addressing these issues that are stated. With that being said, this roundtable hearing has been duly heard and is addressed, and my office will continue to accept written testimony for the next 10 working days. Testimonies may be sent via email to Senator T.C. Nelson at guamlegislature.org or delivered to the office of Senator Telena Cruz Nelson at Suite 202 Alpha, 173 Espinal Avenue, Hagåtña, Guam, 96910. A recording of today's hearing will be available on YouTube at the Guam Legislature Media. It is now 19:01. This concludes our hearing. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and God bless.